This video is brought to you by MyBookie.ag. UFC 279 is finally here and it looks much better than when people were criticizing it. It's going to be headlined by Khamzat Chimaev versus Nate Diaz, so it's one of the few pay-per-view cards where there's no championship fight on it. And honestly, the main card by itself is pretty good, man. The co-main event with Jingliang versus Tony Ferguson, that fight could go many different ways. It's kind of hard to predict how Tony's going to look in this one, coming off the first KO loss of his entire career. And going up to welterweight at the same time, there's a lot of X factors involved. Kevin Holland versus Daniel Rodriguez is such a good fight. Not enough people are talking about it. Rodriguez has been out for a bit. Kevin Holland's been more active, but they are going to be fighting at a catchweight, which throws a little bit of a wrench into this. Irina Aldana versus Macy Chiasson, I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correct. That's a pretty good fight as well. Johnny Walker versus Ian Cutelaba is chaos waiting to happen, and you already know what kind of fight that is going to be. Absolutely the banger of the card. Johnny Walker versus Ian Cutelaba, someone's gonna get finished. The fight could end in 10 seconds. If Johnny Walker wants to fight a bit smarter and composes himself, fights a little bit more passive by a game plan, the fight would turn out to be a lot more interesting. Maybe he can use his athleticism, use his reach to keep Cutelaba at bay and tag him with a bunch of shots, or Cutelaba barges in there through Walker's lack of defense. It's pretty much an open gate for Cutelaba to charge through, and he can hit him one time with a haymaker and that would be it. The fight of the night, in my opinion, is Kevin Holland versus Daniel Rodriguez. Both guys have that dog in them in a sense. Rodriguez puts on the pressure, he goes after you. He has an awkward style, but extremely effective. He has pretty good power, he's well-rounded, and his defense is actually extremely underrated. Kevin Holland could overextend on a lot of his punches when he tries to counter or even move forward. He overextends in general, so trying to hit Rodriguez as he's pulling away and parrying your shots, it can leave Holland very much open to a lot of counters. But Holland's always one punch away from knocking out anybody, and he's wild, although he is becoming a lot more technical as of late. The prospect of the night, I would have to say, is Melissa Martinez. She's a fighter that I talked about before to be the best strawweight prospect in the world. She is 25 years old, has a great traditional martial arts background. Her kicks are super dynamic. She has excellent footwork and seems to be quite intelligent in the cage, but we'll see how she competes in the UFC. This is her debut. And the fighter of the night, it's both guys in the main event, honestly. Khamzat Chimaev and Nate Diaz for different reasons. Khamzat's the guy that's looking to be the next superstar of the sport. He's heavily favored to beat Nate. He's expected to absolutely run through him. And with a win here, he could get the next title shot. With Nate Diaz, it's the last fight in his contract. People are really wondering, what if he pulls it off? What if he pulls off the biggest upset in UFC history, while also, according to his words, I don't know if he means them literally, barely even preparing for the fight. He just wants to fight out his contract and move on with his career. And sadly, the stake of the night, the fighter that is in hot waters, is Tony Ferguson. If he goes on a 5-fight loss streak, I mean, it's pretty much it for Tony. He's fighting a guy on the lower end of the top 15, although very dangerous, capable. At his older age, getting knocked out, there really isn't much left for Tony. If he loses this one to Jingliang, especially by another knockout, he should just call it a career, man. Retire. There's no way he's going to get a belt. There's no way he's going to be able to chase a title afterward. And with that, let's go right to our first fight, Johnny Walker versus Ian Cutelaba. This is just going to be a wild fest. I for sure see Walker trying to be composed here. I see him trying to be technical, stay in his stance as much as possible, use the jab, use the front kick, use a side kick to the knee, try to pick a Cutelaba from a distance and ultimately just hold him away. You might see some flying knees and spinning back fists and stuff here and there, but Cutelaba's going to be looking to stalk him. He's going to be looking to land that big shot to knock him out with one. And given Johnny Walker's weaker chin, with Cutelaba's immense power, Cutelaba will put him down with one punch. Walker could potentially put him down with one shot as well, but he's become a lot more gun-shy as of late. And I don't know if it's because he's somewhat insecure about his defense, but if his defense is not up to par, his offense has to work as a defense. He cannot allow the opponent to get going, so overwhelming them in the beginning actually could be somewhat effective, instead of trying to stick behind a guard and moving away from punches, which is something that Walker just doesn't do that well. And looking at the way that Walker just lost his last fight to Jamal Hill, I mean, Hill just ran at him with an overhand, and Walker didn't defend it at all. Cutelaba could do the exact same thing, and also being faster than Jamal Hill, right? Johnny Walker's not doing too well in his career right now. The only thing is, he's so athletically gifted. He could turn his career around at any moment as soon as he starts to really get on top of things. As soon as he finds the right coach, as soon as he gets the right kind of mindset. He's been talking about CBD messing up his mind and stuff, and I don't really know what's going on in Johnny Walker's head. It is probably not something we should know. But ultimately, my prediction for this fight, I'm going to go with Ian Cutelaba, and I'm going to go by a first round knockout. It could go either way. This is not a confident pick one way or the other. Both guys are just so wild. Anything can really happen in the 205-pound division. One shot and it's over. First opening that presents itself, the fight might end right there. And then we go to Kevin Holland versus Daniel Rodriguez. I am so excited about this fight. Both guys have a lot of heart, super tough, never out of a fight, always find a way to come back. But skill-wise, Daniel Rodriguez seems to be ahead of Holland in most areas of the game, whereas Holland has the attributes. He's much longer, he's much taller, he seems to be more powerful punch for punch, and he can be pretty unpredictable. He puts a lot of emphasis on his own right hand. He throws a lot of right straights more than anything else. And the problem that he could run into is that Daniel Rodriguez's defense is extremely underrated. The guy has good eyes. He sees everything coming at him. He rarely ever gets hit clean. He slips punches very well. He parries punches very well. He has good movement, whereas Holland is more of a plotter. He doesn't move much. Only when he's throwing punches, he'll dig in with everything he has, and it generates these kind of knockouts. He's able to hurt opponents because of that. But if he misses, he way overextends. And if Rodriguez catches him with a counter, just like he did against Kevin Lee, left hook or left overhand counter, potentially even a check right hook because they are opposite stances, Holland could be in a lot of trouble very early. Rodriguez never stops moving. He's extremely mobile, man, and with that comes that jab. Daniel Rodriguez throws a jab unlike any other fighter in the UFC. It's very unique. He leans in with his upper body and snaps it into your face before his legs are even moving. So his upper body comes forward before his legs move, backwards of what a lot of boxing trainers teach you, but some of the old school boxers back in the day used to throw it like that. Even Muhammad Ali made a whole career of doing that. But Muhammad Ali had a reach advantage against most of the opponents that he fought. Rodriguez doesn't necessarily have that, so he's using the speed behind that jab to get in on you and really just disrupting a lot of what you're doing. When he's pumping that jab in your face, and the way he throws it, it makes it hard to see coming. A lot of his opponents' focus start to be on that jab and they forgot about his left hook, which is his most devastating weapon. With the pressure that he's going to be able to put on Kevin Holland and get Holland to start moving a little bit, Holland does not want to be stationary. He doesn't want to be in front of that jab constantly. He needs to start moving a bit to get away from the cage to start to get a bit of the ground in his advantage, but he could run into the left hook if he's not careful. And always Daniel Rodriguez has an option of going for a takedown, as Kevin Holland's usual weakness has been wrestlers. He's getting much better. He is taking the steps to do away with that weakness, but it seems to be still there. Even Tim Means took him down, which is not a great thing. So my prediction for this fight, I'm going to go Daniel Rodriguez, and I'm going to go by a decision win. I think Holland's too durable to get knocked out. It could happen, but I ultimately see Rodriguez putting the jab on him constantly, trying to slip away from that right straight from Holland, even take the fight to the ground whenever it presents itself, with Holland overextending on a lot of his punches, and not really having great distance management. He will run his body into you when he throws punches. There is a lot of opportunities for takedowns and counter shots. And Rodriguez's best thing is that counter left hook. And then we go to the co-main event. Jingliang versus Tony Ferguson. I don't know how I'm going to be able to watch this fight. I like both guys a lot. I like Jingliang. He's a down-to-earth guy. He's cool and everything. Everybody's giving him that kind of respect. And Tony's just old. And not just old, coming off a fresh knockout loss. Barely even give him time to recover from it. I mean, he took the medical suspension, but man, you don't want to risk these kind of things. He got knocked out in May. It's September, 5 months ago, and he even said he was sparring to prepare for this fight. So realistically, he's probably only had like 4 months of recovery, if that. And that is usually not enough. Now, Tony's a different breed. I mean, he came back from a horrendous knee injury half a year later, when they were saying that he probably won't be back for a year and a half. So we'll see how he recovers after that knockout loss. Tony Ferguson is built different, but he's going up to the welterweight division for the first time ever since he won the Ultimate Fighter. And that was way back in 2011. But back in those days, man, Tony Ferguson had legitimate power. Look at him run through the Ultimate Fighter, hurting everybody with his punches and kicks. His power seemed to have gone away a bit when he went down to lightweight, but going up to welterweight, at least we know he packs a good punch. As he's going to need that against Jingliang, because that guy hits hard. Jingliang throws punches at you to try to take your head off. And if he hits Tony with one of those hooks, this fight could be over. Tony's going to be giving up a little bit of size to Jingliang. And honestly, the best way for him to win this is to wrestle. I don't know if he's ever going to bring that back. He's barely ever even shot a takedown in the UFC. Slinging shots with Jingliang is probably a recipe for disaster. He could crack him, he could hurt him. Jingliang usually shows to have a very good chin. His style is a technical brawler. But the thing is, Lee really only throws like one combination. He throws that right straight into a left hook. He's thrown it so many times in his career, it's the main thing he tries to catch everybody with. He even knocked out Santiago Ponzinibbio with it. And the thing is, when Tony fought Justin Gaethje, that is actually the same combo that he was getting hit by. Right straight, left hook as Tony's circling away very awkwardly. And if he doesn't have his eyes on Lee, the shots that you don't see hurt the most, and that can cause an early knockout. But what I will say is, technically speaking on the feet, if Tony shows up right, if he fights the way that he fought Michael Chandler in the first round, he definitely has a shot at winning this. He is definitely more technical in a lot of things that he does on the feet than Li Jingliang. His jab is going to be a huge weapon here, his front kicks to the body, his counter left hook when Li is blitzing in there with combinations. But Tony has to read the feints because Li Jingliang is always feinting, constantly, non-stop. He's always giving you different kind of looks just so he could find that big power shot to put you out. And if Tony starts to read those correctly, he could actually shut down Li Jingliang for the majority of the fight, especially if he brings in his wrestling again. If he shoots in takedowns, and if Lee wants to stay on the outside to find his opening, Tony could pepper him with jabs and front kicks, and Tony cannot overextend. If he overextends, Lee will counter him devastatingly with that left hook. Ultimately, my prediction for this fight, I am going to go with Li Jingliang, and I'm going to go by a second round knockout. This is merely on the precedent that Tony doesn't come back the same after that Michael Chandler fight. That is what I'm ultimately expecting. That's the main thing I'm predicting about this. If he were to show up correct, I can absolutely see him winning this, 100%. I would probably even favor him to win. But with everything involved, you have to take in the age factor, you have to take in the knockout loss factor, you have to take in he hasn't fought in welterweight for such a long time, so we don't even know how he's going to show up. And Li Jingliang is in the prime of his career. Everything is stacked up against Tony. But what I will say is the odds are probably too much in favor of the Leech. And then we go to the main event. Khamzat Chimaev versus Nate Diaz. There's a lot of craziness that went on this week about what Nate was saying. It seems like he's more focused on the organization than Khamzat Chimaev himself, and he even went out and said that he doesn't even care about the fight. He didn't even prepare for the fight. He said, just beat me how I am. That's a gangster move, but probably not intelligent. Khamzat Chimaev is a super dangerous fighter that stylistically is a nightmare for Nate. You bring in the wrestling style, you bring in the power, you bring in the youth, the size difference, the momentum, the confidence that Khamzat has. Everything is stacked against Nate. There's no wonder Khamzat is an 11-1 favorite. He is expected to destroy Nate Diaz and make the fight look as easy as possible. Everybody always has a chance. Everybody always has a shot at winning a fight, no matter how the odds are looking. Nate's way of winning this is by toughening out all the damage, weathering the storm early, bringing the fight to Khamzat at all times just to have some resistance against him. His goal will be to get Khamzat into the later rounds, gassed out, and frustrated with him not able to finish off Nate. And then Nate starts tagging him a bit. Jab and left straight and left hooks, putting Khamzat up against the cage, ripping up body shots and headshots in a barrage, and try to put him down through there. Maybe Khamzat shoots in a takedown out of desperation, and Nate chokes him out with a guillotine or something. That is the way Nate would win the fight. How likely is it? It's his biggest chance of winning. So whenever I make predictions, I always put the chances of them winning instead of an absolute winner, because everybody has a shot. But ultimately, my prediction for this fight, I am going to go with Khamzat Chimaev, and I'm going to go by a third round TKO. I don't see Khamzat knocking Nate out on the feet. That would be wild. I mean, Nate's never been knocked out before like that. Josh Thompson put him down with like several head kicks and then TKO'd him. Khamzat knocking him out with punches would be wild. I could see him at least hurting Nate. Conor was able to do it. I don't see how Khamzat wouldn't be able to. But playing the boxing game with Nate puts him at a bit of a disadvantage. Nate is overall a more technical boxer. He's more of an effective boxer than Khamzat, and Khamzat doesn't move his head. Nate will always be able to tag him as long as Khamzat doesn't shoot for takedowns. If Khamzat stays on the feet, Nate will be able to hit him consistently. Khamzat's way to win this is he has to take Nate to the ground and dominate him. Pass through all the submission attempts, get into a dominant, maybe half guard position, side control, full mount, get the back, and start hammering away with ground and pound. That is the way Khamzat would win the fight. Now, what I will say is, I do not think Khamzat should be an 11-1 favorite, because the striking difference between the two isn't necessarily that vast. And if Khamzat doesn't use his head, if he starts to get into a brawl with Nate Diaz, he could lose the fight. The longer the fight goes, the more it's going to favor Nate Diaz, but I'm banking on Khamzat actually fighting this one intelligently and using his wrestling to win. And because of how wild those odds are, it does not hurt to put something on Nate Diaz. In fact, I see a lot of people thinking that Nate might even pull this off. MyBookie.ag has the best odds. With an 11-1 favor for Khamzat Chimaev, plus 550 for Nate Diaz, it wouldn't really hurt to put something on Nate, because you don't see these kind of odds that often. Even though Khamzat should win the fight, I don't think the odds reflect Nate Diaz's actual chances here. Khamzat's never been 5 rounds before. He gassed out in a 3-round fight against Gilbert Burns in a fast-paced fight. He can be easily hit. And against Burns, he didn't show that much intelligence. Nate Diaz is as veteran as you can get. He has the stripes, and he's not going to detour away from what he does best. Whereas Khamzat could. If he does, Nate actually has a big chance of winning here. So these odds don't come that often, man. If you are someone who wants to bet on Nate, mybookie.ag is definitely the place to go. The fight I would probably say stay away from would be Ian Cutelaba versus Johnny Walker, because Cutelaba is a pretty big favorite, but you never know how that's going to go down. I personally favor Daniel Rodriguez to beat Kevin Holland, so I did pick one pretty good size underdog to win on the card. Tony Ferguson is a plus 229. That's a big underdog, man. If you believe Tony's going to win, my bookie has great odds on that as well. I would say your lock of the card is probably Norma Dumont. She's fighting Danielle Wolf, who only has one fight in MMA. She's 39 years old. She was a long-time professional boxer. The only thing that would make me scratch my head is if Dumont strikes with Danielle the whole fight. If she does not take the fight to the ground, I don't even know what to say at that point. I mean, she would have to show some of the worst fight IQ ever if she doesn't do that. Hold on. Khamzat just missed weight by 8 pounds, and they're saying it's because of a medical issue. Okay, I don't even know if the fight's going to be happening, but if it does, now it's even a bigger chance that Nate wins the fight. But if it really is a medical issue, I don't know if it's going to go down. We'll see how this plays out, but the more news that comes out, the more it gives Nate a chance to win this. I would say your dogs of the card. Chris Barnett is a pretty good one. He's a plus 324 against Jake Collier. I definitely don't agree with that at all. In fact, I'm picking Barnett to win the fight. And your other underdog on the card, I would say, is Daniel Rodriguez. Underdogs are always a bit riskier, but those underdogs are probably the most likely to win on their fights. And of course, you can always line up a parlay to match up fighters that you think are going to win to multiply your earnings. When you go to mybookie.ag and you capitalize on these odds, make sure to use the deposit bonus will to match up your first deposit all the way up to $1,000. You put $10, they give you another $10. You put $50, they give you another $50. Whatever your first deposit is, they will double it as long as it goes up to $1,000. And in order to activate this, make sure to use the promo code WEASEL, that's WEASLE, to activate that offer. Visit mybookie.ag today where you can win big. And that's the end of the predictions, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and if you did, make sure to give this video a thumbs up, make sure to subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next video.